Hello, friends. Today I'm going to tell you about a 2013 fantasy comedy called The To-Do List. Rob wakes up from a wonderful dream involving a charming beauty, which leaves him in such a state that his mother is shocked when she looks into his room. Burning with shame, the guy goes downstairs, hoping to leave for school without any further discussion. But it doesn't work out. His father asks Rob to stay for a talk, as after his lost school president election, he can no longer turn a blind eye to his son's failures. Knowing that Rob has an important college interview today, he gives him his old swim team bandana, asking him to wear it before the meeting. Rob's friend, an equally odd guy named Stanley, joins him on the way to school, telling him about his own morning fantasies. But it's time for the guys to return to reality and go to class. At school, the friends meet Arthur, a nerd who writes lesson plans for teachers for money, and Gabrielle, Rob's friend, with whom he can discuss the boring smarty pants from their favorite show. This whole company isn't very respected in school, and the local volleyball players demonstrate this by soaking Rob's pants with their excrement. For the guy, this is a real catastrophe, but his friend promises to find him clean clothes for the interview. The only thing he can find is shorts, but Rob has no choice, either stink or wear them. To somehow cheer up his friend, Stanley advises him to find some privacy in the bathroom and relax thoroughly, thinking about the most beautiful high school girl. Right during this conversation, Angela herself approaches the guys and asks Rob to tutor her, but the guy bails, citing being very busy and sending the beauty to Arthur. Stanley doesn't understand at all why his friend is so flustered, since Angela is very popular in school, but Rob doesn't want to cancel his meeting with Gabrielle and miss watching Smarty Pants for a pretty face. In literature class, all the guys are listening to the well-endowed teacher with their mouths open, and only Rob, buried in his textbook, is preparing for the interview. Rob is called out right during the lesson, and taking a deep breath, he goes to determine his fate. Gabrielle offers to walk her friend to the vice principal's office, again discussing the latest news from the intellectual show. The vice principal greets the guy friendly, pretending not to notice his strange shorts. He takes Rob's notepaper, on which Stanley drew a lewd picture, and throws it in the trash, asking the student to be himself. The guy starts talking about how his parents graduated from Georgetown, but after these words, the vice principal starts sobbing, remembering his late wife. The other questions elicit a similar reaction from the interviewer, and Rob even has to give him his father's bandana so he can wipe his face and pull himself together. But it doesn't help. The interview has failed, and the schoolboy leaves with nothing. Meeting Angela in the hallway, Rob tells her he changed his mind and can come to tutor her. The guy hopes that at least this will lift his spirits. Rob doesn't dare tell Gabrielle the truth, so he lies, saying he's just not in the mood for Smarty Pants. After school, the friends go to the pharmacy to prepare Rob for his session with Angela. In the end, the guy arrogantly takes a whole 3-pack of condoms, and in an enlarged size. At the blonde's house, Rob is met by her strange guest, but all this doesn't dampen the schoolboy's anticipation. The girl doesn't keep him waiting. She invites him from the doorstep to sit on the bed and have some wine, informing him that her parents aren't home. When even this doesn't give Rob determination, the beauty moves to an active offensive, and at that moment, the guy wakes up in his bed in the same state as the previous morning. Everything repeats down to the smallest detail. The awkward conversation with his father, his old bandana, and his mother's indignation about the soiled sheet. The walk to school is also very familiar. Even Stanley repeats his stupid story. When both Arthur and Gabrielle say familiar phrases, Rob is finally convinced that it is not his imagination, and he is reliving the previous day. The dirty pants, the shorts, and Angela's request. The guy decides it was all just a dream, and that's why he's experiencing deja vu. But he can't use it to his advantage, and the interview fails again due to the vice principal's tears. The schoolboy goes to the infirmary and asks for help, but after seeing how it is provided to others, Rob decides to figure it out on his own. He goes to the pharmacy again, only this time he forgets to warn Gabrielle that their meeting is canceled. The tutoring session with Angela sends Rob back to his bed again, where his mom finds him, and so it happens day after day. Tired of these repetitions, Rob climbs into the bedroom of a senior girl, Lisa, whom Stanley hangs out with. When he tells his friend about his problem, he suggests it's all due to hormones from his prolonged innocence and offers to quickly resolve the issue with the three of them together. This time, the morning starts from that moment, but it's no different from the previous ones. Realizing it's all about the satisfying conclusions that send him back to the start, Rob tests his theory using an adult website, and it's confirmed. The guy's nerves begin to fray, and once again, When the athletes spray him with a water pistol, he smashes it against the wall and has to run from the seniors. Trapped, Rob has to wet his pants in front of the guy to transport himself back to the bedroom. This time, the guy cancels the conversation with his father, and he tries to change the course of the conversation with his friends to add variety to his Groundhog Day. He even rides a mini car to school, and instead of lessons in the interview, Rob goes with Gabrielle to the school bus to smoke. Sharing a cigarette, the friends recall the day they met in the 3rd grade, and looking at his friend, Rob feels very awkward that he has chosen the date with Angela several times instead of watching Smarty Pants with Gabrielle. Deciding to make the most of the situation, Rob decides to fulfill his long-standing dream to relieve himself in the teacher's toilet. After that, he drives his friend around the school, eating donuts and not worrying about the interview, which he fails again. Passing by an open classroom, Rob notices that literature class is in session and remembers another item on his list. He enters the class and checks if the teacher's famous assets are real, surprising her and his classmates. The guy really cuts loose, and wearing a hoodie, he decides to get back at Sally for grievances since the 4th grade, but it seems this time he went too far. The athlete gets up and smears the guy against the wall, applying a hit to a forbidden area. Rob is taken to the principal, as he has managed to surprise everyone in one day. In the office, the guy learns that serious proceedings await him. The cops and his parents are on their way to the school, convinced their son is obsessed with that sort of thing. The schoolboy asks to be allowed to go to the toilet, but the principal doesn't risk it and asks him to remain in the chair until the police arrive. So Rob solves the problem on the spot and transports himself back to the bedroom again. He puts his hand in his pants and starts the procedure, using mayonnaise for this. The principal notices what's happening behind his back, and a scandal begins. Rob escapes from the office to the girls' locker room, where he tries to continue the relocation. But after the hit from Sally, it seems not everything is working properly. Stanley tries to help as best he can, but it only makes things worse, so he intends to give up. Fortunately, another hit from Sally solves the problem. Everything starts anew, but the exhausted Rob doesn't even want to have fun anymore. He walks around the school apathetically, and Stanley tries to talk to him, but nothing works. When it comes to the interview, Rob is no longer polite with the vice principal because he understands that this isn't his desire, but the desire of other people. He doesn't want to go to university or visit Angela, and that's precisely why nothing brings him joy. Instead of visiting the blonde, Rob goes to Gabrielle and tells her everything, hoping his friend will believe him. The girl is skeptical of the story, but tries to help her friend and takes him to Arthur. However, the nerd's house isn't very welcoming to guests, and a scuffle transports Rob back to the bedroom. This time, Rob tells his friends about what's happening to him right there at school, and he has to make an effort to find out from Arthur what his grandmother was shouting the day before when she was attacking guests. It turns out the strange word meant a curse, and how to lift it, Rob has no idea. The guy finds words that convince his friends he isn't lying. After thinking, Stanley suggests that somewhere in this day, Rob is making a mistake, and everything will repeat until he fixes it. Rob starts sorting things out in order. He tells Angela he will come to her to deliver the joys, and after studying the lessons from his friend, he behaves much more actively this time. Suddenly, the guy realizes what's going on. Angela isn't actually interested in him. She just planned to use him for homework. Leaving the blonde's house, Rob sees his father, who found out about the failed interview. He persuades his son to wear the bandana and takes him to the vice principal to try his luck again. The guy has to listen to the sad story again, but this time the man pulls himself together and conducts the interview. He emphasizes that he still hasn't heard from the guy why he wants to go to Georgetown, having only heard why his parents want it. Rob realizes that he really doesn't want to go to university, or maybe he does, but he hasn't thought about it because he's actually been thinking about Gabrielle all along. After having a drink, father decides to help his son, and they all go together to the girl's house. Rob climbs through the window into Gabrielle's room and admits that nothing happened with Angela, but the girl doesn't care. She asks her friend to leave. When he refuses, Gabrielle decides to transport her friend back to the bedroom, and pulling off her top, goes for his belt. At that moment, the girl's father enters the room. Rob musters his courage and confesses his love to his friend right in front of the man, after which he plans to go home and start everything anew tomorrow. Gabrielle persuades her friend to stay so they can finally experience the joys for the first time. It wouldn't be said that it goes perfectly, but still, Rob doesn't disappear, and after an outpouring of emotion, he stays in his friend's bed. His curse disappears. And so this quirky movie ends. Friends, thanks for watching. Write in the comments what you think about this movie, And do not forget to support us with likes and subscriptions.